Here we go. Okay, we're booming now. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. We're just going to jump right in. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. All right. And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This census first took place while Quirinius was governing Syria, so all went to be registered, everyone to his own city. Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Excellent. Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. So this baby is who? It's Jesus, our Messiah. So there's a couple things I want to point out here. Luke throws out some names, some political names, and we can always go back and we can check those people through history. He mentions Caesar Augustus, which reigned from, I think, what did he reign? From 27 BC to 14 AD. He mentioned Herod the Great, which reigned in Judea until 4 BC. He mentions the governor, Quirinius. He mentions a census, etc. He goes into a lot of detail to put the pieces together with the historical figures that were alive and reigning at this time of the birth of the Messiah. So verse 4 is very interesting because let's focus on verse 4. Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem. I like that because it says he went up. Now, if you look on a map, Bethlehem is actually to the south of Nazareth. So they're not actually going up as far as you looking at a map, northeast, never eat soggy worms, northeast, southwest. He just means they're going south, but they're going up because Bethlehem is higher in elevation in comparison to the sea level. So, it's mountainous. So he's actually going up, but he's going south. There's really nothing there. I'm not trying to prove a point, but it was just interesting because as I was looking at the map a while back, I'm thinking, well, how is he going up? And it just dawned at me, oh yeah, let me check the elevation. That's what it means by going up. So sometimes these things pop out and you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, it's very simple. It's just geographically the city was higher. So anyways, but I do like this because it says that they went out of the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David. So he mentions the city of David, right? Which is called Bethlehem. So now he's saying, hey, this city of David is actually the city of Bethlehem. It's called Bethlehem because he was of the house and lineage of David. So Joseph is going back to where his family, to where his, he's tracing his roots, where he's from. And then later on, we haven't done it yet, but we're going to get through the lineage, the genealogy of the Messiah, of Jesus, all the way back to creation. That's going to be pretty interesting. But I want to talk about Bethlehem and this city of David, and I have a few scriptures I want to share with you. And so when Luke says the city of David, and then he says Bethlehem, he's putting the two together. He's putting boom, these are red flags that pop up, and he's pointing us back to the Old Testament. So let's go to the Old Testament and talk about this. Micah chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. The book of Micah 5, 1 through 5 says, "Now gather yourself in troops, O daughter of troops. He has led siege against us. They will strike the judge of Israel with a rod on the cheek. But you, Bethlehem Ephrath, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting. Therefore he shall give them up until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return to the children of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they shall abide. For now he shall be great to the ends of the earth, and this one shall be peace." Okay, a lot going on there, but let's focus on the eye popper, the one that just sticks right out, right? Verse 2, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrath, Though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel. He's saying there is a one that is coming, a ruler of Israel, and he's coming from where? He's coming from Bethlehem. And he actually uses the word, he says Bethlehem Ephrath. So if we do a word search, and if you don't do word searches, you're missing out. So start doing word searches. You can get this big book, or you can probably get the app on your phone, but I prefer the book. I don't like looking at the screen all day. It's called the Strong's Concordance. I can look up any word I want. It'll give me how many times it's in the Bible, how it's used, whether it was Greek or Hebrew, and it will tell me every single part. If I want to look up the word Bethlehem, it's mentioned, 29 times or 37 times. It'll give me each scripture. So if I just want to study Bethlehem, then I can do that. And that's exactly what I did for this study. Although we don't have time to go through every single one, but I found a connection. Look at what he says in verse 2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But anyways, I looked up this word, and look what I find. Very interesting. In the book of Genesis, chapter 35, verses 16 through 20. Then they journeyed from Bethel, and when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrath, Rachel labored in childbirth, and she had hard labor. Now it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said to her, Do not fear, you will have this son also. And so it was, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar on her grave, which is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. So listen, pretty much if you come across something in the word and you're like, well, what exactly does this mean? The law first mentioned, you go back to where it's first mentioned in the Bible, and it'll tell you before Bethlehem was known as Bethlehem, it was known as what? Ephrath. And this is why in Micah, he makes the connection. He said, whether you call it Bethlehem or whether you call it Ephrath, I'm putting these dots together for you so you can go back and you can see what I'm talking about. And we're going to do a little more study on this word Bethlehem. We still have about 7.5 minutes left. But Luke is putting the pieces together for us. He mentions the city of David from Bethlehem, and then he points us to Micah 1:5, and then Micah 1:5, which is Bethlehem and Ephrath, points us to what? Points us to Genesis, where it actually gives us a definition. On the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. They're one and the same, right? So my name is Robert, but my nickname, everybody calls me Bobby. Some people that don't know me too well, they may call me Robert, but they call me Bobby. But you know what? They're making a reference. They're pointing to the same person. I'm not two different people. I'm Robert, I'm Bobby. But just depends on how you know me, how our relationship is. So it's very interesting there how we're connecting these. So the book of Ruth, I'm not going to read any scriptures. I had some scriptures I was going to read. They take a while, and you don't want to hear me read. But it only has 4 chapters in the book of Ruth. So I encourage you to read the book of Ruth, because what it is, it's about a Gentile woman that marries a Jewish man, and he dies, right? I'm really paraphrasing right here. I know I'm not going in all the details, but he dies. And so the mother-in-law, she was in Bethlehem. There was a famine. She was from Bethlehem. She was in famine, but she went to Moab. But then she heard that God was giving bread, that the famine was over, and God had provided so she could go back. So anyways, her son died, and she told the daughter-in-law, hey, you're free to go. My son's dead. I'm too old to have another son. You can go back to your father's house. Go live your life. You're free. And the Moabitess woman, she said, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going with you. Wherever you go, I'm going to go. Your people are going to be my people. Your God is going to be my God. Your land is going to be my land. I'm with you. I'm connected. We're linked. There's a covenant together. I'm going with you. And so the mother-in-law was like, all right, come on. So they go back to Bethlehem. And long story short, there is a man named Boaz that can actually redeem her. And he marries the woman that was a widow. He marries the Moabitess. And it actually turns out that all this happened in Bethlehem, right? Ruth and Boaz, the story is 4 chapters. It takes place in Bethlehem, where the city of David, or also known as Ephrath, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But we see that this woman, Ruth, actually, her and Boaz, she's redeemed by Boaz. She has a son named Obed, right? That son, Obed, has a son named Jesse. That son, Jesse, has a son named who? Named David. because of that, because of her faithfulness, guess what? She was redeemed by Boaz, which is a picture of our Savior, which is a picture of Christ. He redeems us when we were dead. We had nothing. He comes and he gives us. He lets us glean from the land. He provides for us. He gives us a name. He gives us an inheritance. He gives us life and sustenance, and he loves us, kind of like Boaz does to Ruth. It's a picture of Christ, our Redeemer. But anyways, she actually becomes what would that be? The great grandmother of David? Yeah, great grandmother of David. And then later on, who's after David? Jesus, the Messiah, comes. It's all pointing back to David, and then there's a whole connection. There's a scarlet thread that runs through it. But read the book of Ruth. There's only 4 chapters. It goes quick. We got about 3.5 minutes left. But so far, we're seeing this connection with Bethlehem in the city of David. So let's do this. 1 Samuel 16, 1 through 4. We want to connect Bethlehem and David now, which we already did, but we're going to keep going. Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me. But the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. Who is Jesse? Jesse is the son of Obed. Who is Obed? Obed was the son of Ruth and Boaz. See how it's connecting? And I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I named to you. So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, do you come peaceably? Now we also read in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 6 through 7. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, who spoke to David, saying, you shall not come in here, but the blind and the lame will repel you, thinking David cannot come in here. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. That is the city of David. So we see a connection here. We see actually 2 things. It says the city of David, right? So one, they call Bethlehem the city of David, but another time they call Zion, they call Jerusalem the city of David. So you say, well, David's got 2 cities. I don't understand. Well, the first city, Bethlehem, they refer to it as the city of David. Why? Because that's his origin. That's where he was birthed. That's where he was born. That's where he grew up. So in that sense, by origin, Bethlehem is the city of David, but also there's a reference to Jerusalem being the city of David. Why? Because he took that by conquest. We just read this. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. That is the city of David. He took over Jerusalem. So now we see the connection between Ephraim, Bethlehem, David, and then eventually coming the Messiah. So I want to point this out. Bethlehem. Bethlehem, right? So it means house. Bet is house. Lehem is bread. House of bread. Think about this. House of bread. Jesus comes from the house of bread. Okay, John chapter 6, verse 35. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. You see the connection here? John chapter 6, verse 51. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. So we see that Jesus is comparing himself to remember the children of Israel when they left Egyptian bondage. They're in the wilderness and they complained. They wanted food. God miraculously fed them with a type of bread. It was called manna in their language. And the word manna actually means, what is it? Or what is this? I believe, I'm going by memory. It means something like, what is this? Because it was just like some type of weird bread. And in the Psalms, it's actually mentioned how God fed them with angels' food. Whether that was literal, it was really angels' food. They consumed it, or if they just meant like it came down from the heavens. I'm not quite sure. But the point is, he's saying, hey, your ancestors ate bread. God gave them bread from heaven. But guess what? Even more so, God is giving you bread from heaven right now. I am the bread. So when you eat me, obviously not cannibalism, but when you consume my words, my truth, my sacrifice, my life, guess what? You get to live. Just like eating bread gives you strength. It gives you, depending on what kind of bread you're eating, if you're allergic or something. But anyways, technically it's supposed to, give you life sustenance. We got about 20, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm squinting. We got about 15 seconds left. So it's very interesting that Bethlehem means house of bread. And he's making this connection. Jesus is from the house of bread. And he's saying, hey, I am the bread that gives you life. If you eat me, you consume me, you will have life. So that's Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. Next time we're going to pick it up. Peace.